sizes. Next, we come up to our featured speaker, who is the Senior Vice President of Tzu Chi University, Dai Changxian. And today we have the pleasure of him joining us in person. The introduction was by our team in Jiayi, and the poster design was by Taipei team. We can see that each of these regions all hold a small part in making this event spectacular. So now let's take some time to know what our senior vice president has accomplished. He has a lot of news, even if it's just on, even more than just on the Dai TV news. A lot of it is due to his collaboration with the Pingdong Technology University on the effort of long-term care. As we know that long-term care is a broad field. We need people from different skill sets together so they can work together. And Tzu Chi has been a long-term participant in the long-term care. So we'd like to share our experiences so that many people can learn from it. At the same time, before he joined Tzu Chi, he has his conversation with Master. And as we know, even if as technology continues to advance, we need to focus on our humanities. And just by focusing on technology is not enough for sustainable development. Only through improving the humanities that we can create a sustainable goal. After we also learned that he is from Kaohsiung, which make us feel particularly familiar. He have joined many of our large-scale events, including uh, the Buddha bathing ceremony. That was his first Buddha bathing event and witnessed the firm resolve of Tzu Chi volunteers. As we see that everyone followed together to do the same thing, he felt very impressed by the devotion. And at this moment, we can. The reason why I invited him to this time is from our scholarship ceremony last year. We know that he will be here to promote admission to the Tzu Chi University. So I took this opportunity to invite him. And like I said, if as long as you take the step forward, you will be walking forward. So we have this opportunity for him joining us today. In this event, we want our students to know that as long as you work hard, you'll be able to surpass yourself and build that brighter future. And today, our topic is more related to one of the academies in TCU. And this academies is in the field of green development, including carbon emissions, sustainable development. As we see that used on this chart, the administrative building uses the most amount of electricity, and we are creating a net zero academy to become the first uh, leader training program in Eastern Taiwan. we're using school as the catalyst to nurture people in green development, leaders in green development. So now let us invite him to join us with our model. As we know, he is a former president of the Pingdong Technology University, but he's also from Kaohsiung, and I feel particularly familiar with him. I think he has a very good oral skills, and it has impressed me a lot. So I took the opportunity from the scholarship reception, and when I saw his name on it, I realized this is the chance that I've been waiting for. So as long as we're able to ask, we have him today. For our senior vice president, Siji is a relatively new field since he just took this position last year. But his profession in management and in education will be helpful for us as we move forward. So let us listen to his sharing about sustainable development. Dear Master, dear Global Masters, and Global Tzu families, I hope you all have a great day. I'm very grateful to be able to be here at the Kaohsiung study group. Like Teacher Ming has said, I only been here for a year, a little bit more than a year. I was about to retire after my tenure, but the TCU president, Ingrid Liu, invited me to join me and to help with the administrative processes. So that brought me to TCU. In the past year, I felt like I started off as a blank piece of paper, but with this affinity, I'm able to observe many impressive feats about Tzu Chi. In Hualien, I have a lot of opportunities to hear masters teaching and other opportunities to travel and see around Taiwan. I've been to Taichung, I've been to Guandu, Kaohsiung, Guting, even Thailand and Indonesia, and visit their local branches and their Jingsi halls. Every location has their unique parts, and that gave me a lot of energy. Everyone was following Master's principles, Master's guidance, and using many events to broaden the Bodhisattva path. And that was impressive to me. Today, what I would like to share with you all uh, on the topic of sustainability. Sustainability is something that we all have heard a lot. But first, why do we need to be sustainable? As we know that our basic need is to survive, and our gene is the true owner of our life. For cells to survive, it needs to have the blueprint from our genes, and it must also have enough nutrients, enough of the elements it needed. So every life, in order to survive, must find a sustainable supply of resources. Some of the beliefs that we have learned that, following Buddhism, we're able to surpass the limits of our genes and find our self-realization, even and beyond. However, as we know that there are side effects of obtaining resources, such as anxiety and greed. And that is matches with the talk about suffering in Buddhism. In the human realm, there's many ways that we tried to become sustainable. It and why are there so many different methods? But because there's so far no one way that fits all. They all have their limitations and their strong points. So we are on the right track, but we must know that every method, their pros and cons, their limitations, and how do we utilize different modalities to meet our needs. Let's start from the basics, from the resources that we need to survive. As we know, the human population has continued to grow. We will be looking at surpassing 9 billion by 2046. How do we feed this many people? How do we feed the world? The agricultural land will not increase. There's only about 10% land in that's suitable for agriculture. As we meet as the demand for food increases and when there's more mouths to feed, we must be find ways to increase our food production using limited amount of land and water. So we must use technology. How do we utilize technology to feed the world? The most simple thought was, can we create, just like a small factory, we can create a small farm from flat land, uh, field cultivation to three-dimensional vertical cultivation, agriculture. The reality is not as simple. We must look in many facets, including physics, chemistry, biology, even management. There are many developments in our technology, and they interfere with each other, interact with each other. And by utilizing these different fields, we are able to create a new smart agriculture, such as genetic engineering to create rice that's adapted to alkaline soil. We can create a perennial rice that we can harvest multiple times of the year, throughout the year, or use direct seeding to reduce waste, or even doubling our harvest on the same lot. All this is to use a genetic technology, a biotechnology to modify the strains so that we can increase our food production. And recently, we have now discovered new ways of cloning with single cells to develop into a full plant. And we're able to quickly create new species that are adapted to the environment and be more productive. Besides biotechnology, we also have to modify and innovate by uh, including the use of AI, using big data. We can also apply the same thought to agriculture. By using these methods, we can more effectively utilize the resources, such as using less fertilizer, less water, while meeting our production goals. In reality, there are many challenges and difficulties. Using Taiwan as an example, as we know that Taiwan has many scattered small farms. A lot of the new technology, new methods, is difficult to implement on these small farms. And Taiwan is also heavily hit by climate change. So a lot of the methods, proportions for fertilizing, for watering must be modified. And that will require utilizing big data. Now, Taiwan is a well-developed area. In other parts of the world, there are areas where farmers are lacking sufficient water or fertilizer or even electricity. So how do we make sure everybody can produce properly? One of the biggest problems we face right now is not production, but rather distribution. A lot of the countries who have overproduced are unable to ship them effectively, whereas countries that are in food shortages are unable to get them. So take disaster, for example. How will these how will the people affected by disasters receive suitable nutrients? That is a challenge we must face. As we have learned that that growth and resource use are proportional. To create more food, we need more machinery, we need more water, we need more electricity, we need more fuel. So the consumption of energy is directly proportional to the development of civilization. We all hope to live a worry-free life. That's why we need to be more cognizant of our choices. Our traditional energy sources are limited. Some of them may be depleted in a matter of centuries. And they also have drawbacks such as causing climate change, environmental impact, whether it is the nitrogen or sulfur productions, that also have negative impact on our health. So we must reduce our carbon emissions, carbon footprints, and reduce our reliance on conventional fuels. Zero emission target has been something that many countries are focusing on, and we really hope that in the next decade we're able to effectively reduce our carbon emissions. Of course, in reality, the 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 results are quite disappointing. As we see that renewable energy, the percentage of renewable energy is still quite low compared to a conventional fuel. And let's not fool ourselves into believing that renewable energy is all good. There is some drawbacks, such as they have low density of production and would use a lot of land, a lot of uh, space. The supply can also fluctuate, and it's difficult to balance production with consumption. So they creates bottlenecks. Are these problems solvable? Of course they are, but it requires investment, requires funding. Whether it is economical to invest, that is a question uh, that we all must answer. Every other countries wanted to reduce their carbon emissions, but we're all fighting on how and how much. Some people say that China produces the most carbon dioxide, they must reduce the most. So, of course, they must reduce, but given that they have such a big population, they also would use a bigger share of energy. What about countries such as US who have only a third the population of China but consumes way more energy? Or countries like India who uh, are still under development, whereas other countries are or have been developed for the past hundreds of years. So at so there's no right or wrong here. And we must have then that's why we have multiple meetings throughout the year. And at the end, we we leave it to each other country to find their own balance. But even in a meeting like COP15 in Copenhagen, during the meeting, it has the most concentration of private jets. So many of the people attending the meetings are flying private jets, private transportation, and creating tons of greenhouse gas. So it's one thing to ask people to do, and it's another to do it yourself. As we know, reducing carbon footprint, carbon emission is something that we have all heard or talked about, but whether we're doing it or not is a different story. Right now, it is not something that technology can help solve, but rather it is dependent upon our own attitude. Fortunately, the cost of renewable energy has started to decline throughout the years, whether it is solar or wind power. It has been proven to be, it's becoming more economical than conventional, coal or gas uh, generators. But even greenhouse gas or sustainable power, or even green energy or sustainable energy must have also have stability issues. So how do we prevent that from happening? Well, the best way is to use our conventional energy productions. And one of the way is to use nuclear power, nuclear fission. Now, as we all know that nuclear power started from the development of atomic bomb. They're not particularly concerned about safety, and we have heard of many different accidents, such as the Three Mile Island or Chernobyl, and creating uh, radiation pollution. At the same time, there's also the problem with nuclear waste. There's two types of nuclear waste. There is high level nuclear waste and low level. Low level nuclear waste are something that we can just bury and leave because as they will decay over hundreds of years. But high level nuclear waste will may take millions of years to completely decay. So as we know that when US developed the nuclear power, they have plenty of land to bury their waste. But in other countries, this is not feasible. So that will create a, a bottleneck in promoting nuclear power. Fortunately, there's modern development have made it much easier to implement. The third generation nuclear power plant has designed so that even during times of core meltdown, the core will not be completely destroyed. So this has been effective in promoting nuclear safety. And even the fourth generation, using fast neutrons, they were able to create energy or extract energy from nuclear waste. Of course, fourth generation nuclear plant have is just started in the development. There are other obstacles they must overcome, but in the future we should have more reliable nuclear energy. Right now, we are currently in the development for fusion power. It is not something that's easily achieved. It requires high temperature, high pressure. So in order to contain all that, we must create a strong nu magnetic field and using material that will be able to withstand these extreme conditions. Nowadays, using intelligent manufacturing and design, we're able to create materials that can fit these needs. We hope that by 2030, we should have a positive um, step and maybe even become commercially viable by 2050. There's also quantum technology that are currently in development. There's a lot of calculation that's needed that current computer just does not have enough power to solve. So using quantum technology, quantum computing, and combined with AI developments, we can implement all these developments, whether in energy production, in medicine, we see a positive trend. So using all that technology, all the advances, it's making fusion a possibility. Using fusion, we can effectively reduce the production of carbon dioxide because we're able to reuse that carbon and create synthetic starch. It all sounds amazing right now. And my original thought for renewable sustainable energy is to use that as a stopgap before fusion is truly available. We must reduce our carbon emissions, our footprints, as to so we can wait for that future. Of course, dreams are still dreams. It may or may not actually happen. As the brother shared earlier, should we have sense or be sensible? As we heard that recently, due to the rising prices of gold, I would like to share with you all the story. In ancient Greece, we have an emperor called Midas, and he was pray to God for gold because he loved gold so much. He gave him a special power that anything he touched turns to gold. When he touched the table, it turns into gold. When he touches the chair, it becomes a gold. He's ecstatic. He was so happy that he has a limited amount of gold. But the problem comes when he touches bread, it turns into gold. It's not edible. And when he touches his daughter at night, she turns into gold. So as we know that gold, even though valuable, cannot solve all the problems. And it faces the biggest fundamental challenge of our human race, that is greed. For many for many other animals, greed is not really a thing. As long as they're fed, they're no longer hunt or attack other animals. But humans are different. Even if we are successful, we're still constantly on the hunt to be for the next level and to acquire more. 8,000 years ago, in the Two River era in the Mesopotamia, it used to be the most fertile area in the world. There were technological development, there were a lot of agricultural productions, and people live a happy life. But with more people, they need more food and need more land to grow these food. So they must create more land by cutting down forests. And as they continue to grow and meet the food needs, they eventually faces desertification. So does technology ultimately bring us to a brighter future? Not necessarily. It still depends on what we do with it. As talked about agriculture technology, we need a lot of funding, we need a lot of development, a lot of research. So all these big four companies in the world are constantly creating disparities and pollutions. And behind these developers, these companies, there's also commodity traders, food, and they are deeply entwined with politics, and that causes issues throughout the world. So developing technology is not always a good move, and it's fundamentally fueled by greed, and it doesn't solve our fundamental issues. As we see in this picture, a lot of them are brand name clothes, and some of them may only be worn once. Why are there so many clothes scattered around the Chilean desert, that is overproduction. And because all the poor countries, they're producing clothes so that they can sell them and make more money so they can live a better life. And they would sell them to more affluent countries, which would become which become more wasteful because of the low production cost. So as we are tr in a endless pursuit for increasing our gross domestic produce, we must also ask ourselves what is the true balance? How do we be sustainable? If we want to develop agriculture, what are the impacts to our ecosystem? If we develop into cities, what are the challenges? Even though there are seven, even though there are the Sustainable Development SDG goals, sustainable development goals, if we don't change our thoughts, change our way of thinking, there is no way we can be truly sustainable. Of course, you cannot say that humans have completely no ambition. Um, in this experiment with rats, when we give them enough food, give them endless amount of food, the rats should should reproduce unlimited. And as we know that we have a lot of mental problems because they have no challenges, no ambition in life. So same applies to human. When no vision, we have no desire, then what is it to be living? In many societies, they are creating a grand scheme, such as the Challengers. They have flown out of the solar system. And from this picture that was sent back by the Challenger, we can see that in the vast universe, Earth is just a small blue dot. There are countless galaxies and stars in the system. So we now know how small human race is. And if we have a grand scheme, a grand vision, that may be too far for us because before we reach that goal, we may probably end ourselves by our constant struggles. So now we must take the moment to inspect ourselves. How do we properly utilize our resources? And there are challenges. One is that one, there's difficulties, and two, it may not produce a noticeable result. As Master has always taught us, and I'm really impressed by her, is that before the concept of climate change, about sustainable development, Master has been promoting environmental protection. And truly, the real solution is to resolve or reduce our desires. And that is based on education. Our education goal is to teach humanistic values by crossing the bridge between technology and humanity. And can it save the world by itself? I doubt, but through the process, you learn to appreciate, to reduce your desire. If you become vegetarian, it's not just for your own health and reduce resources, but it's more importantly, it is a change in our mindset. As Master has shared with you last week, we talked about the disaster relief in Guangfu. She has urged all of us to eat more vegetarian meals. It's not just for your body, but is for the world as a whole. and to settle our minds so that we're not in a constant state of desire of acquiring resources. So how to promote Tzu and spread the Tzu value, that to me is the true methods to a sustainable development. As Master keeps teaching us that she's saying that the feeling of peace is um, obtained after a laborious giving. We don't necessarily have to own a lot, to have gold, to have luxurious products. It is through helping others, by benefiting others, then you found that sense of peace, that sense of accomplishment. Just one person may not be able to do a whole lot. But even though if we cannot change our current situations, do not feel discouraged. As long as there's more people coming together, then we can create a force to change the world. So this is my sharing. So this is a magazine of masters on the health magazines. How to benefit our minds and for us to feel more fulfilled. So I have asked him to provide us a written script because we have translation team. Instead of providing a script, he has recorded a segment of his talk to give us as a practice. And after the Guangfu flooding disaster, he had asked to modify it so that he can add that in and share his thoughts. So from here, you can see that he is really focused on benefiting others. From his sharing, he can speak 30 minutes and record it to give to the translation team. So there's some of the feedbacks from our listeners.
Thank you, Craig, for the whole translation. Now, we hear from people from around the world to comment. California too. Thank you for share us with your video for the translation. Only when people are able to transform their own mindset, that will be able to balance the world. So here, we want to share with you Sister Andy. Even she was on her trip, she's still receiving our sharing in your presentation. Sister Andy, thank you for your sharing last week. From North California, even with AI, we cannot help with the climate change. It comes back to everybody's mindset. Today we're going to have an exercise, so the students down there are very exciting. we can see our senior vice president is very, very well cultivated. That's thanking him again with a big applause.